What's up, guys? Welcome back to Newswave. We've talked quite a bit around how game prices could be going up here in the next couple of years, maybe to start the next generation, just based around a lot of the budgets we're seeing, and we've discussed the Switch 2 console price, whenever it does get revealed the system. But now we're starting to hear more and more around how game consoles could actually go up in the short term because of the current economic climate, and it's gotten actually to the point now where the ESA themselves have issued a statement, and we're going to go over all of that here today. Also, we are going to be talking about the PlayStation 2 and how after almost 25 years since its release, it's just got a pretty big upgrade that makes it easier than ever to run your games from the memory card slot. Oh, and we did get a nice glimpse at the newest Battlefield title from EA. We're expecting it to come out maybe later on this year, but now we have more information around how you yourself can test it here pretty soon. So if you guys enjoy these videos, make sure you hit that like button, helps out a ton. And if you're new here to the Spawnwave channel, make sure you subscribe down below. And of course, members for the channel do get Newswave early. If you would like to learn more about that, click the join button down below. And we're going to start today with Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Now, this game, of course, the follow-up, go figure, to Kingdom Come Deliverance that came out years and years ago, and it was like crowd-funded to get it off the ground. And people looked at it and said, hey, it's a really good, start to maybe a series here for Warhorse Studios, and now they're coming out with the sequel, and reviews went live yesterday, which the game itself is out today, but we can see reviews here. This posted up over on Metacritic, currently sitting at an 87 on the PC. That seems to be the lead platform in the number of reviews. Right behind it, though, is the PlayStation 5 with 43 reviews at an 88. The Xbox Series X matches that with 10 critic reviews at an 88 as well. And I had a chance to play this game for the last week or so, and after going through it, I see the vision here, and I get how people who are really into these big open-world sprawling RPGs are going to get a kick out of this one, especially if you're into the more realistic medieval setting. The only thing for me, though, is the combat just has not clicked at all. And I've still been going through it, but it's kind of that situation of, I just wish there was a bit more maybe impact to it, a bit more in terms of like responsiveness. It's kind of this riposte system where it tries to show you which way they're swinging, up, down, left, right, center even, and you can block, parry, and that sort of thing, or you can use a shield. Even like the firing of a bow and arrow or crossbow, it just feels very floaty. So for me, that's kind of the one hiccup and the part that hasn't clicked. Everything else, though, the world itself is interesting to explore and meet people and do all kinds of side quests. Seems like it's gonna be hundreds of hours to do like a platinum trophy run. There's a lot there for people who like those really deep RPG systems. So in that instance, yeah, I recommend it. Just kind of look up the combat, I guess, a bit before you jump in knowing what you're getting into. Also, we had some news around Assassin's Creed Shadows in a headline that didn't think I'd ever have to read, but we can see this posted up over on VGC, saying Assassin's Creed Shadows details leak after Artbook is uploaded to a hentai site, which it's actually pretty impressive they got it up on the eShop without Nintendo noticing. Actually, no, that seems pretty cool. In this case, though, people are passing around a lot of the pages for this art book, and I guess you could deem them as spoilers with some of the character bios and images and stuff there, although we're getting closer and closer to its release. We've seen plenty of previews for it, but just wanted to put that out there that yes, an art book in the strangest of settings has gotten out there for Assassin's Creed Shadows. So if you're trying to avoid a lot of information around this game because you're already kind of sold on it and you just want to check it out for yourself, just be aware that there is a lot of information floating around right now that could fall into that category. It's just an odd thing to see pop up, and didn't really expect Assassin's Creed to have its art book leaked out like that on the eShop. Oh, and we do have a new indie show to look forward to here in about 3 weeks. This over on IGN, saying the idea at Xbox Showcase will stream on Monday, February 24th, 2025, 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern Time across IGN platforms. Some of the studios that'll be there with reveals include Raw Fury, Team 17, Akapura, 11-Bit, and many others. They also have some of the big highlights include the next big collaboration for Balatro, and much, much more. So obviously fun to look forward to different indie games because you never know what's really gonna show up at something like this. It being part of IGN, their big Game Fest thing means it'll get a lot of coverage. So it'd be really cool for a lot of those smaller studios to get thrust into the spotlight. And I'm sure we'll get some very creative stuff being shown off. So I guess mark your calendars here, 3 weeks, February 24th. And guys, with some of the quick news out of the way, let's get into the bigger stuff. Let's start right away with a topic that I'm sure is going to keep the comments nice and calm and boring, and that has to do with a lot of the talk around tariffs currently, especially online. I'm sure you've noticed that word getting thrown around quite often, mostly with arguments back and forth, and now we're actually seeing the ESA have to make a statement around this because the tariffs seem to be leading to some pretty significant price increases and changes that people are concerned about here, as like 25%, 10%, 50% all being thrown around when it comes to just everyday goods, services, and materials. And we can see this from the ESA. They say tariffs on video game devices and related products would impact Americans of all ages across the country. This is a statement to Kotaku, saying we urge the administration to consult with the private sector in a transparent process to avoid causing significant harm to everyday Americans and to one of the fastest growing entertainment sectors in the United States that, of course, just around video games in general. The ESA does represent, think of any of the big publishers, platform holders, in-gaming developers. They are most likely part of the ESA, and they're basically speaking on their behalf, which, yeah, like, we don't want things to get more expensive, and neither do any of the companies if it's out of their control. That's not to say if Nintendo made a Switch 2 Pro and they're like, oh, we're going to get $600 for this thing. Well, they're going to try it anyway, and it'll be, it'll be their call. Not like, oh yeah, hey, we were going to price this thing at $400, but now we have to mark it up 25% to account for the additional tariffs on top of this that then does technically trickle down, I guess, to the consumers. That's the thing I've noticed. There's a lot of people speaking around tariffs online with a ton of certainty, and whenever I go and dive deeper into it with people who should know a lot about this stuff, you see economists and stuff speaking, it always goes, okay, we're going to explain how all this works, and then when I give you my conclusion, it's who knows? Because it's just, I mean, look, things can change. It's used as like bargaining tactics, fear tactics. It's back and forth, right? We're going to go ahead and hit you with this tariff. You're going to come back. We're going to go with this one. It's part of negotiation stuff, and then they're like, hey, who knows what happens next week, which way the wind's blowing. So there's a lot of concern around how all this is going to shake out, and some have pointed out, for example, this here from David Gibson, that like Nintendo has decided to change up and diversify exactly where their manufacturing is being done. So one example is China was hit with like an additional 10% tariff when it comes to like goods and manufacturing and stuff entering the US. And it's like, oh, well, if you say produce the next Switch system in Vietnam, would that be affected? Well, I guess it depends if a tariff goes there too, is the way it's being described. So in this case, sure, Vietnam can provide the Switch 2 systems for the US, and then China can provide them for the manufacturing in other parts of the world. It's just not really in my wheelhouse to be like, oh yeah, let's break down the economy and all these things that can affect the pricing. And it seems like that's where a lot of people are. Who knows? So I guess as we navigate what's already been a wild year for 2025, and we are only in February, well, I guess we'll find out what happens as we go along. And hey, I'll keep you up to date if we do, in fact, get hit with something that's like, oh yeah, now that $500 PS5 is $600 or $700 or something. I'll at least keep you guys up to date on that one. Next up, let's talk about Battlefield, because we did get a bunch of information around it, specifically when it came to the studios behind what is seeming to be a massive, massive release for EA, and them kind of going back to the drawing boards. We already heard that it's going to be in just more of a modern setting compared to going further into the future or into the past or something. In this case, some of the footage they even showed, I mean, it looked like, yes, current times, but it also seems like all hands on deck almost for this one. We can see this posted up. This is summarized very, very well by IGN, where they say revealed Battlefield Studios, the umbrella branding for the 4 studios that is working on the new Battlefield. These are the series' main Stockholm, Sweden-based developer DICE, Dead Space remake and Star Wars Squadrons developer Motive, US studio Ripple Effect, known as DICE LA, and UK studio Criterion, whose work on Need for Speed has now come to an end. A side note on that, though, they did say that while they have to be moving to Battlefield currently, which, again, it seems like, as you can see, everyone's kind of moving to Battlefield to get this thing done and out, I guess for this holiday season is how it's being framed, they will go back to Need for Speed, and they will have some newer ideas to shake things up. is at least the statement that's been made for Criterion. Kind of put those concerns at ease for, is Need for Speed just done? Does not appear to be the case. They go on to say DICE in Sweden is building the multiplayer for the new Battlefield. Motive is working on single-player missions and multiplayer maps. Ripple Effect is working on bringing in new players to the Battlefield franchise. And Criterion is working on the single-player campaign. Quote, this is an unprecedented moment for Battlefield. We'll start by testing the pillars of play like core combat and destruction, then transition to balance and feedback for our weapons, vehicles, and gadgets, ultimately leading to where all these pieces come together in our maps, modes, and squad play. And yes, we will be testing Conquest and Breakthrough, the heart and soul of our all-out warfare experience. But Battlefield Labs will also be a place to explore new ideas and fine-tune and improve Battlefield pillars like our class system, so Assault, Engineer, Support, Recon, to create deeper and more strategic play. All this being quoted from an EA spokesperson. So, again, I guess the current plan is it's coming out holiday 2025, or at least that's what they're trying to do. Having this many studios behind it, the push for multiplayer, and a return to single player, which I think is a big deal after what we saw with 2042, which not only just went all multiplayer, but was a very bare bones multiplayer experience. It does seem like they learned their lesson here, so I mean, I'll be curious to see what the single player ends up being, because people post clips from Battlefield 3 as an example, and it looks pretty good still. And I'd say that single player still holds up well enough, so it's at least something left behind, even if like 15 years from now the multiplayer servers aren't really working at all. You still have that single player to go back to. But the thing that really caught my attention with that trailer, they showed some quick gameplay. And there was a lot of destruction. Like, it seemed buildings were coming down and things were blowing up around you, and you had like entire doors and walls blowing apart. I understand Battlefield does a very good job with the first look to really try to pull you in with really, really good looking footage that's clearly designed as just marketing tactics. But if they can get back to destructible environments and get closer to what we have with Battlefield Bad Company 2, where if you were camping in a building, all right, we're just going to destroy that building, it's coming down, like Red Faction style, coming down, like it's going crazy, then I think it could be a lot of fun and feel like Battlefield again. So I like what they're saying here. I like that they are they're really all in on the idea of the community, testing it, balancing, coming up with ways they can improve ahead of launch so that they can put out a Battlefield that feels complete and feels high quality. I'm interested. I'm going to keep an eye on it, cautiously optimistic, because they've shown us great stuff in the past, the first impression to try to get you, like, really pull you in, and then they come out with Battlefield 2042. So I'm going to keep an eye on it and see if I find any impressions around some of the play tests. But you can go sign up and try to get in for Battlefield Labs. Just understand it's going to be under NDA for the time being if you do get in, so you're going to have to keep a lot of that to yourself as you're blowing up buildings and rolling around through some massive maps. Next up, let's talk about a major upgrade for the PlayStation 2 for 2025. Now, the PlayStation 2 has actually seen quite a bit of improvement through the homebrew and modding scene, to the point where, yeah, you can easily modify your PS2 by ordering a memory card off of Amazon and then putting a hard drive in the back of like that bay for the fat PS2 model. Start loading PS2 games on there just off the disk drive and you're good to go. But now we are to a position where it's easier than ever to just use one memory card and load all of your ISOs for your PS2 games directly off of it, which means the slim PS2 is probably going to be the preferred way to utilize this. Now, we can see this posted up. This is over on Time Extension. They say a team of coders have created the multi-purpose memory card emulation MMCE protocol, which allows games to be loaded directly from new smart memory cards, such as 8-Bit Mod's MemCard Pro 2 and the open source SD2PSX memory card, which is really cool to have an open source variant of this. The MemCard Pro 2, I think, is like $45 and then shipping. And that's the one with the LCD screen. I did an entire video on it. It's a really, really, really cool accessory to have for the PlayStation 2. And that was before it was opened up through a recent firmware update to be able to not only load FreeMcBoot, but also load all of your ISOs off of an SD card there along with that. So basically, you can have this one memory card plugged into your system. As soon as you turn the PS2 on, it'll kick it into FreeMcBoot, and then going into another program, you can play all your ISOs immediately. And you know what? The interesting thing is the memory card slot, to my understanding, is faster than the USB ports on the front of the PS2. So with that and the MMCE protocol, you should get pretty good experience in loading off of it, all things considered. So this is pretty significant to me for the PS2, because otherwise the slim PS2 was always kind of weird. There was a lot of work that had to be done, or you had to do some weird things, maybe load through Ethernet to get a decent experience. But now you don't even have to open the system up at all. No wiring things inside of it to activate the IDE drive that's technically in there as a slot, but there's nowhere to really put it. So this is pretty cool. And you know what? I have the Memcard Pro 2. I also ordered just a bundle off of Amazon that was like $20, and I want to see if that legitimately can modify a slim PS2 with the memory card on the front there with an SD card slot. Because if that's the case, if we really are at the point where it's $20 to do it, all of that off of an SD card loading games, that's pretty impressive. So I guess keep an eye out for that video. But yeah, for now, if you have a Memcard Pro 2 or you're interested in this open source version of it, I'll leave a link down below to this article that then links you out to all the other good stuff. And in our last bit of news, let's talk about Mega Man, specifically sales around the best-selling Mega Man game, which is Mega Man 11. And if you had to guess right now, how many copies do you think that would be? So just entire history of Mega Man, all the different games that have released. 11 is the best-selling one. What do you think that number is? Because it's probably lower than you just said. It's, we can see this. This is over on Rockman Corner. It says Mega Man 11 sales top 2 million. That's the highest selling game in the franchise. This came way of Capcom updating their platinum titles list the other day, which they'll do, especially when they get do quarterly reports. They'll go in and just update where everything is in terms of its overall sales for the franchises or the individual games. 2 million copies, though, for Mega Man 11. And this really comes back to the issue right now that Capcom has with Mega Man, figuring out how to get it, I don't say over the hump, but to that next level. How do we turn it into a 5 million unit seller? And I don't know if Mega Man really will be able to do that. And it's kind of a shame because the franchise is so storied. The character is so, I think, well-known, iconic in gaming, I would say. But it's just, it has not been able to reach that level of, yeah, obviously we have to greenlight any project around this, or we can allocate a sizable budget to it. It's just kind of been rolling along with a smaller budget. Think about Mega Man 11. We've seen it on sale for $10 consistently. It's not like the Mega Man franchise is a huge moneymaker for them. But I would like to assume that they want to keep trying it because it does have that iconic status, and it is a well-known character from Capcom. One that should also be very marketable, right? Not only themselves, but many other Nintendo really wanted it in Smash Brothers along with them, and I think that worked well. We saw the recent thing with the secret level episode. It was pretty cool to see that, even though it was 5 minutes long, merchandise, etc., etc. So it is worth doing another Mega Man game, but they do have to figure this out. And maybe it is trying to do it in RE Engine, like we've seen that with 2D games before. Or maybe just trying Mega Man X and seeing if they could do even a more mature style Mega Man. There's a lot of potential there, but here's hoping Capcom has a couple of interesting tricks up their sleeve and have already been working on one. Because if not, to have this kind of a gap between Mega Man games, with 11 being 6 years ago now, 7 years ago, it does make you wonder how committed they are to it, and if it's something they will just leave on the back burner for a decade or longer. And before we go to the comment of the day, we'll take a look at the poll that I posted up yesterday, where I ask, which of these February game releases are you most excited for? Okay, a lot of people ask why Monster Hunter is not here, and to be honest, it's because I figured 80% of people would have voted for Monster Hunter, and then the other 3 would have just been 5%, not even, right? It'd been pretty low. But I picked out 4 games. I don't even get the 5th option anymore for YouTube. I don't know why they took that away from polls. But anyway, Like a Dragon, Yakuza, Pirate in Hawaii, that was 40%. Avowed right behind it at 30%. Then Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. Then The Legend of Heroes Trails Through Daybreak 2. You know what I will do, though? As we get closer to release, I'll ask how many people are buying Monster Hunter Wilds, because based on the comments, I assume that's going to be majority yes. So hey, we'll see in a couple of weeks as we get closer to the end of February. And we'll finish up with the comment of the day as you're seeing here. This is from Sashin, says, about 10 years ago, I was worried that if Nintendo's next console after the Wii U is a failure, then I'd be playing a new Zelda or a Mario on a PlayStation or Xbox. Now we're looking at Halo on Switch 2. How times have changed. Yeah, the The Wii U situation wasn't great. There were a lot of concerns around Nintendo, and that's apparently one of the reasons that they announced the NX so early on, because they were putting games on phones. So I was like, oh guys, we're not getting away from the console market or like our game systems. No, we're still doing that. All right, even though we're announcing stuff going to phones. So they were in this odd position there. But I mean, think about it, the Wii U and the 3DS combined sold less than the Wii did, like total. And now take the DS that did 150 plus million, add that to the Wii. Massive step down from the 250 plus million piece of hardware Nintendo sold that generation combined versus the 3DS and the Wii U. So it's no wonder people were wondering if at some point Mario and Zelda would be on PlayStation or Xbox or something, because Nintendo did get to that position. They were down pretty bad from the generation prior, but now you're right. It's kind of going the opposite direction, where it seems like Microsoft is going to show up with Halo for Nintendo's next system. So yeah, how the times have changed there. And ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it here for Newswave. If you enjoyed this video, guys, hit that like button. If not, hit the dislike. Leave comments down below about everything we talked about here today. If you missed yesterday's Newswave, I'll leave it up here in a card. Or maybe you want to hear more about how Microsoft's floodgates seem to be opening, especially after the recent announcement of Forza Horizon 5. I'll leave that right below it. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.